John Hewson, of course, is showing all the charisma of the unwilling demand. When companies will be saying, why bother to do anything in Victoria, because it is getting to the stage of a recession being self-competing there. We back winners, not losers, reinforce success.
Vandals used rakes to rip up the turf on 10 of the club's greens. They gouged holes in the ground and etched obscenities in the soil. Greenkeeper Bobby Laurie was heartbroken when he discovered the havoc. He estimates $1,000 in damage has been done to the course. Although the greens have been repaired, it'll take more than a month before normal play can resume. Some weeks ago, vandals dug up 3 greens. Police are investigating both incidents, but they're not sure what motivated the 2 attacks. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
It's been a frustrating 4 weeks for Harrigan, forced to watch from the sidelines as the Knights continue to scramble up the Winfield Cup ladder. His comeback, though, was in doubt, the chief recovering from minor knee surgery.
I never thought 2 or 3 days ago that I'll be playing for this weekend because it was so sore, and it's coming on nicely.
Yeah. Harrigan will take his first cautious steps tonight at training, but he says he will not be treading gingerly around those Sea Eagles, despite that much talked about tackling technique.
It's just one of those things you've been taught as a kid to lift your gun sights around the ball and make sure the bloke doesn't get an offload. And I think that's the way I'll continue to tackle, because it is clean and effective, and I think that's the best way to tackle.
Harrigan's inclusion is the only change in a Knights lineup which has been firing in recent weeks. A win against Manly on Sunday will keep them in the top 3.
Peter and Brad Wolfgang admired and looked up to their older brother Wayne. He was an adventurer with a love of the outback. He was also an academic achiever with bright prospects in BHP. But on May 25, state election day last year, he returned from a 3-week trek, climbed back on his motorcycle and vanished.
Day he voted, and that's the last we've seen of him. We don't know anything else.
The Police Missing Persons Bureau says Wayne's case is a puzzling one.
It's more or less like a mystery to us. A young fella, lots of friends, and financial, no problems in that regard. And he's practically just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Wayne Richard Wolfgang is now 27 years old. He's about 190 centimetres tall, of medium build, with brown hair and eyes. He was riding a white Yamaha XT600 motorcycle, but from the day he left Newcastle, there's been no sign of him or the bike.
Checked out the passports, bank balances, registration of his motorcycle.
The family's efforts to locate Wayne have been intensive. They even printed their own posters for distribution across the country, but the trail is growing steadily colder.
It's pretty terrible. Like, it's always close to your mind. If every day you think, or when you're watching the news, you look in the crowds to see if you can see his face. Or it's quite terrible, actually.
Police have arranged a contact number for missing persons to at least call them and confirm that they're alive and well, even if they have reasons for not wishing to contact their family. The number is 008 025 091. Tom Hilston, NBN News. The occasional interruption to electricity supplies is a rare inconvenience for most, but in the Seaham and Clarenstown area, it's becoming all too common.
Well, we had one case here about 2 weeks ago where we had 6 power failures in 1 week. They would range from, I'd say, 30 seconds up to 3 hours.
David Thomas is one of several hundred residents in the district who's at the end of his tether. Over the past 3 months, the community's been left in the dark on at least 20 times. And when you're relying on electric power to pump your water, life quickly becomes intolerable.
Without that power, we can't wash, we can't shower, we can't wash the dishes, of course, and we can't even use the toilets.
Shortland County Council concedes that swampy conditions in the region prevent them doing as much maintenance as they'd like, but they also suggest that the residents of East Seaham may be the victims of Murphy's Law. Power poles have broken, lines have fallen, a crane working in a quarry hit power. A pelican flew into one cable and a magpie dropped a wire on yet another section of the grid. Shortland Electricity is preparing a strategy to renew ageing power insulators as well as replacing or upgrading other sections of the line. In the meantime, residents at Seaham aren't straying too far from their storm lanterns. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
It may look like a shopfront, but it's more than that. It's a new training facility where the region's prospective retailers can now hone their skills.
We're after a pair of slacks from my wife. We're going to an anniversary party.
And these are the ones you picked?
Do you reckon they go? She's got blonde hair.
Blonde hair, yeah, with a light top. Size 12?
Size 12,
yeah.
I think. I'm not too sure, mate.
Role plays like this are helping students gain practical retail experience before being thrust onto the shop floor. College Principal John Gabb believes it's invaluable hands-on experience for students.
Well, they get a chance to have practical experience in the actual classroom instead of them going out and working in industry only with theoretical information behind them. They can be put into the classroom, they can be put through exercises, they can role play any exercise that the teacher can think up.
Officially opened today, the shop will provide more than just retail training.
It's designed as a mix and match facility so that we can make it anything we want, such as a boutique like it is today, or it can be a real estate office, or it can be a chain store.
What do you see the students benefiting? Previously based in Sydney, Croker Oars has operated off Oxley Island for almost 15 years. The oil manning firm uses local craftsmanship and materials.
We're a bit fortunate. There's actually quite a lot of skilled workers available in the manning. And we've got tool makers and die makers, we've got injection moulders, we've got fiberglass fabricators. Even our wood is now local. We used to import thousands of dollars worth of spruce each year from Northern America. And now we're making use of plantation timber from the Macleay.
The operation produces the latest in high-tech oars for surf boats and rowing teams from Australia and New Zealand, with inquiries coming in from South Africa and Japan. Company owner Howard Croker is overseas monitoring world markets, including Barcelona, while the boys at home put the finishing touches to some high-tech oars for the Australian team set to compete in Canada in the near future. Over the years, the oars have changed shape. This latest design gives an added speed advantage.
Because the blades are bigger, they don't slip in the water as much. So the blade stays still and the boat moves faster. And the difference is at least one boat length in the course of a boat race, and that's enough in most cases.
The Craftsman now oars 95% carbon composite rather than wood. The carbon composite variety are faster and stronger and don't take nearly as long to make.
Hundreds of family, friends and Hunter Institute of Technology staff packed Newcastle University's Great Hall to acknowledge this year's graduates. 300 students received their associate diplomas in 16 different specialisations. Stuart Russell topped the state in the Electronics and Communications Advanced Certificate, and Michelle Keegan was also number one for the Chemical Technology Associate Diploma. Meanwhile, across campus, the university's Blues Dinner was underway. 4 athletes were presented the traditional university blazer and tie for sporting excellence, including Andrew Abbo for hockey and David Willis for basketball. Some belated blues were also awarded, including Doug Chapman, who achieved a basketball blue 37 years ago.
At the Broadmeadow Basketball Stadium, the second day of the World Shido-Ryu Karate Championships, and it was the kata that took centre stage. The kata is a set of movements performed with precision, and in the women's qualifying heats, Japan's Shinobu Kimura dominated with a score of 19.2. Newcastle's Charlene Machin was also impressive, being one of the leading qualifiers with 18.9, and she was joined on the same score by the brilliant Lisa Ling. The men's final tomorrow should be a beauty. Tournament director Brian Hayes with 21.5 points, throwing down the gauntlet to all and sundry. Souths opened up as if they were the Tooheys Cup leaders, out along the back line, and Crows passed back inside, and Brad Guy did the rest. All of a sudden it was 16-0. A simple move, and Butler on the ball touched down under the posts. But West are a good side, and just before the break, Darren Tracy, with a touch of individual brilliance, broke West's long-standing try-scoring record, grabbing try number 22. From there on, it was all Western suburbs, Tracy scoring again from a superb backline move that saw many sets of hands involved, and the Rosellas were home. It was sudden death, and Big Peter Hull got Arara on a roll, accepting a nice pass from Darren Blakey to score next to the posts. Brad Hart had a great game, this field goal edging Arara closer to victory over Kempsey. Kempsey hit back, however, a sweeping backline move out to Marty Creeker, and Kempsey were back in the match. But Arara had their sights on a win, Brad Hart superb. A full report on the semi-finals in NBN's News tomorrow night. $3.10 and $1.40, $2.90 and $1.50. The Quinella $14.20 and the trifecta $101.70. At Sandown it was the Churnside Stakes over the 1,000. $4.20 and $1.90, $5.70 and $2.80. The Quinella $72.20. The trifecta a healthy $1,291.30.
Newcastle's bid to build the Navy's new generation guided missile frigates went to the bottom 3 years ago, a casualty of a tendering war. Despite the federal government's assurance that at least $70 million worth of work on sections of the 10 ships would come our way, so far only one $400,000 job will be carried out here. Efforts to wrest more of the $3 billion prize away from the successful tenderer, the Victorian-based shipbuilder Amacon, are dead in the water. A trade mission of local businesses and the Chambers of Commerce and Manufactures will visit the Amacon shipyard in Williamstown tomorrow, selling Newcastle's capabilities door to door.
There's still about $300 million worth of work that's left, and that's the kind of work that we think fits in with the capabilities of Newcastle companies.
The mission will also visit the Australian Submarine Corporation in Adelaide, hoping to pick up the pieces of another contract Newcastle missed out on.
I do think we've been dudded, but if you look at it from a practical situation, we have got to compete with other countries in the rest of the world, and particularly New Zealand. And if we don't do that, then you can't blame Amacon for not choosing us as the successful tenderers.
One hunter firm is going alone for the chance of work on a $750 million Navy mine hunter project. The Varley Engineering Group is considering forming a consortium to build a new design craft with a South Korean company, using Newcastle facilities.
A combination of the Tomago facility and the state dockyard will provide an appropriate mix for a build program that is in most cases as yet undefined.
You could call it a nightmare. It's been almost 2 years since Tony Butterfield played a full game for Newcastle. Injuries to both legs and a broken arm have kept him out. Now the waiting is over. An optimistic Butterfield will make his comeback on Sunday when the Knights take on the Seagulls. Initially, it was thought he would be on the bench for reserve grade.
No, I've been told I'm going to start, so they've thrown me to the Lions, but I'm looking forward to the challenge.
It's a timely recovery, with Newcastle continuing its semi-final surge. Butts is hoping his next taste of first grade will be at the Sydney Football Stadium.
If they can use me in any capacity at all, then, as I say, I'll give 100%.
Meanwhile, 3 injured Knights should be back in the saddle on Sunday. Hooker Robbie McCormack, centre Tony Kemp and second rower Paul Marquardt have been named in the Newcastle side. Marquardt has a cut eye. He'll go for a check-up on Friday. If his vision is okay, he will start.
Pasminco says it's surprised by the statement released by the EPA, which says it will insist on changes to the boundaries of the buffer zone if lead level guidelines are likely to be breached. Currently, the buffer zone includes the 3 blocks closest to the plant, where the company says lead in air levels are at their highest. Some residents, like Kay Sinclair, believe the buffer zone should be changed. She lives about 100 metres from the smelter in First Street, but she's not in the area designated by the company. Her 7-year-old daughter Jacqueline has been found to have a learning disability. Tests are being done to see if it's in any way related to the lead from the smelter. Mrs Sinclair believes it is, and she wants Pasminco to buy her house. But no amount of lobbying has been able to convince the company.
I really feel that our children, why should they be denied the right to having a good education and getting a good job when they get older due to living close to a lead smelter and knowing what the lead does to the children? I feel very strongly about moving out of the area.
Mrs Sinclair has been told by the Environmental Protection Authority that the level of lead in the air around her house is no different from that at the other end of First Street. If that proves to be the case, then the EPA may insist that Pasminco buy Mrs Sinclair's house also. The company said this afternoon there was no evidence to suggest the boundaries of the buffer zone should be changed.
The jaws of a leopard seal are usually to be treated with great respect. A healthy seal can outpace a human over 20 metres, but this youngster was in no condition to do more than raise his head. Parks and wildlife officers and a local vet examined the seal from a safe distance on Catherine Hill Bay Beach this morning. It's thought to be a young male. His skin bears the marks of several bites, possibly inflicted by small sharks. Surfers first spotted the seal several days ago, but with each hour his condition worsens.
It would appear that he's had some chronic sort of sickness, illness, and I'd be very worried about his chances of making it.
It's thought the young seal may have eaten a plastic bag, in which case he'd be in considerable pain with only a remote chance of recovery. Arrangements were made for Taronga Park Zoo to collect the stricken animal.
Once we get him restrained, we've got to turn around then and put him into salt water so that he can be given a course of antibiotics, you know.
Even as plans were being made, the seal managed to struggle back into the surf, perhaps driven away by a growing crowd of spectators.
Any approach towards him is very stressful, and so the most important thing is for people just to give him a very wide berth, stay away from him.
A watch is continuing this evening for the seal's return, when it's hoped the rescue attempt can begin. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
An investigation of Wyong Shire Council's financial management practices was ordered by Local Government Minister Jerry Peacock in January. This coincided with the entrance by-election and public political bickering between Shire President Tony Sheridan and the Minister. A fight Mr Peacock described at the time as good, clean fun. But after 4 months of investigation, Councillor Sheridan is not amused, claiming it's cost ratepayers several $100,000. At issue is how Council manages its money. The Local Government Act requires councils to keep its funds, be they general trust or water, as separate accounting entities. This also means separate bank accounts for each fund. It's this last requirement that's causing contention. Wyong Council puts the money from each separate fund into a single bank account.
It's just ludicrous to suggest that if you've got 10 departments, you should have 10 separate bank accounts, where the time arrives when you need to spend $1 million, and this particular account number 1 hasn't got it, but account number 2 has. As long as you keep your figures and your accounts separate, why pay interest to the banks?
Cross-subsidising, Council says, saves ratepayers $250,000 each year, a practice endorsed by the Local Government Association and Council's legal consultants. The report disagrees and accuses Council of improperly cross-subsidising $16 million, including, in 1988, the transference of $850,000 from water and sewerage to the General Fund for upgrading Council's computers. This afternoon, the Minister defended the integrity of the Inspector's report and is waiting for Council's formal response to the report's recommendations. While Council is seen as contravening the Local Government Act now, a change in legislation due to be introduced next year may see Council's actions in a different light. The change makes for an entirely new accounting system, eliminating the need for separate funds and requiring a more flexible, integrated system. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The seminar gave representatives of the Department of Agriculture and local bank managers the chance to combine forces in understanding the plight of drought-stricken farmers and their money worries. The importance of spending money to make money from farming practices was addressed at the seminar, as was the obvious importance of bankers as moneylenders to assist in that process.
We're all servicing agriculture, we're both in the service industry, and we're not to work in isolation. We've got to work cooperatively. And I must say the support of 60 bankers here today is really pointing in that direction.
Held at Tamworth's Allendale Motel, bankers and Ag Department employees were given visual examples of farmers' hardships, how they find themselves in such situations and how the problems may be solved.
They're excellent days as a staff development day, particularly for our managers who are dealing with the rural customers. It brings them up to date with the current trends in agriculture so they can better service their rural clients.
This is Baroque, a 17th century type of music rarely heard these days. The guitar-like instrument being used is called a lute. Originating in Persia more than 5,000 years ago, the lute is making a comeback, with many musicians choosing to study its background and attempting to master its two-string techniques. The University of New England will host some of Australia's top Baroque musicians as part of the institution's visiting lectureship program.
It's lovely to come to a place like Armidale where the students are always willing to open up and accept new ideas from people who live elsewhere.
The week-long workshop is hoping to produce a program of string ensemble music in accompaniment with the lute and harpsichord. All members of the Bachelor of Music degree are involved in the workshops, with tomorrow night's finale being a concert at Armidale's Ursuline Chapel, commencing at 8 o'clock.
Gusty winds washed across the wall today, but a few lifetimes ago, sailing ships slipped through a treacherous gap between the shore and the rocky island of Governor Macquarie had convicts dig stone from near Fort Scratchley for what was to be a 30-year job to complete the breakwater.
Originally, it was Macquarie's pier. It was built of small stones by Governor Macquarie, stones which came from Fort Scratchley to join Nobbies to the mainland, to cut off the swell washing into the harbour. And it did that.
The wall offered ships safe passage to and from the harbour, where they loaded valuable cargoes of Hunter coal.
Coal was more important than gold.
The trade led to the steady growth of the town. Tall ships gave way to bulk carriers. Local maritime historians pay credit to Governor Macquarie's foresight, and today invited the present Governor, Rear Admiral Peter Sinclair, to dedicate the wall. Politicians, government officers and members of the Newcastle Maritime Museum and Ship Lovers Societies, along with those from the Maritime Archaeological Association, braved the bracing breeze for the unveiling of a memorial obelisk on the pier. It's one phase of a heritage program that will mark Newcastle's maritime milestones, such as shipwrecks on the Stockton side and the curiously named Pirate Point. Local artist and author Terry Callan will compile a book on the development of the harbour entrance over 200 years.
The southbound semi-trailer slammed into a guardrail on a bend of the highway just north of Cundletown at about 2:30 this morning. Police believe the victim, a 61-year-old Sydney man, died when he was thrown from the sleeping compartment. The driver, understood to be his twin brother, suffered minor injuries. The clean-up dragged on into the morning with traffic banking up on either side of the crash site. Accident investigation police from Newcastle had barely completed their inquiries when they were called to another fatal crash just 1 kilometre north of the bend. It's thought the driver, a 33-year-old man from Sydney West, pulled out of a traffic queue doing a U-turn into the path of a semi-trailer. His death brought the road toll for 1 week on the highway to 9 dead. However, police say the deaths can't be blamed on the highway alone.
The traffic conditions were fine. There was very, very light traffic. It was dark, but it was clear. And it's quite a good section of road there, coming off a good straight stretch of road onto a fairly sharp but well-cambered right-hand bend.
The accident site is just another section of the Pacific Highway to have gained notoriety. Locals say this is the third such crash in a fortnight.
Eight games in 6 weeks will tell the story. A loss for the Wildcats will see them fall to 11th spot on the ladder. If the Falcons win 7 of the 8, it's a spot in the semi-finals. On those figures, you can't afford hiccups, and to meet the defending champions first up is a tough assignment.
Perth are the reigning champions, and you can't forget that. They've won it 2 years in a row now, and so they've got a lot of pride in their team and in their franchise. And as I said, because of the injury, they're struggling to maintain their playoff position, so they will be as tough as ever, I believe.
Good news for the Falcons. Defensive dynamo Terry Dozier is back on deck, and his match-up with James Crawford will be crucial to the outcome.
We just got to not go out there and beat ourselves. They are the reigning premiers, and it's a challenge that everybody should be looking forward to.
Also returning Olympian Andrew Vlahoff for the Wildcats. Unhappy with his own form in Barcelona and glad all the hype is over, Vlahoff is a real danger man for the Falcons, but he has a healthy respect for the locals.
When the Boomers played the Newcastle Falcons before we left last time, I thought they gave us the best NBL competition, probably one of the more physical teams in the league, and I think it'll be a very tough match.
And as always, tonight's encounter between the Wildcats and the Falcons is set to raise the rafters.
The tradition is it's awfully tough for us to win on the road here. We're aware of that, and I think that's true in the NBL, so it's going to be a really rugged game, and I think an exciting start to the second part of the season for both teams.
Many believe the number 13 is unlucky. For these 14 ladies from Western, it proved just the opposite. Their System 7 syndicate, which they've used the same numbers for during the last 2 years, won them a share in Lotto's First Division prize money. But getting the results gave agonising moments for one syndicate member.
My son's a bit of a practical joker, and I went in to have a cup of tea with him and watching the Lotto draw, and he kept switching the telly on and off. So we weren't sure whether we had 6 numbers, 7 numbers or what, so we had to wait an hour till it come back on the telly.
After a series of phone calls, the word was out and the winnings quickly calculated. The ladies, who range in age from 48 to 84 years, each pocketed around $28,000. According to the son of 84-year-old Anne Thomas, a win was due.
He said, that's an old saying, it's a good one, it's for you, isn't it? He said, whinge and win, he said. That's how he said, I'm always whinging and never win nothing.
Things won't change much for the group who've played indoor bowls and darts together for the last 20 years, except some will now arrive at the club in new cars, while others will take time out for overseas trips. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Orange Kid far too good for the rest, but it was Genome who got second from Pacific Kiwi. The time 103.8.
The proposal has been mooted for the last 17 years. However, it recently came to a head with the commencement of a study by National Parks and Wildlife. Landholders in the area have until October to make a submission to the service about what they think should be done with the land. The area is presently a regional reserve, which is being administered by a trustee. Landowners are concerned about the future use of the land if it's declared a wilderness area. Residents will organise a petition and lobby politicians.
Yeah, we always realised it was going to be a hard task up there at Gold Coast. They had nothing to lose, and we didn't seem to control the football very well in the first, I suppose, 3/4 of the game. and we were down 20-4 at one stage, but I think the boys realised how important it was to get a draw or even the win, and we just stuck at it and eventually got up with a draw at the end.
With the Gold Coast leading 20-4, it looked curtains for the Knights. Somehow Newcastle clawed their way back into the match and almost snatched the 2 points. However, they did prove a couple of things to themselves.
We've been down quite a few times and always come back. Like, we've still only lost by 6 points as our biggest losing margin, and always seem to come back pretty well. So hopefully, if there's any chance of that against Brisbane, we'll sort of pull it out of the fire, hopefully.
There was some concern that Rodwell, who has been a vital linchpin for the Knights for most of the season, may have severely hurt his ankle, but good news at the moment.
It's fairly painful at the time, but I worked on it last night with some ice, and the doc said it looked pretty good for the weekend.
And Newcastle will need the Genius rookie in their upcoming games against Brisbane and Canberra if they are to make the semi-finals.